What if the most important information about a pet's health is happening when they're nowhere near your clinic? Welcome to the Veterinary Business Podcast, where we bring veterinary leaders, innovators, and practice professionals together to explore the ideas shaping the future of veterinary medicine. This episode is brought to you by our platinum sponsor for marketing, Equa Marketing, helping veterinary practices strengthen their online presence, attract the right clients, and grow with smarter digital marketing strategies. I'm your co-host, Dr. Amanda Landis-Hanna, and today I'm excited to welcome Dr. Ken Lambrecht to the podcast. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, Ken. Dr. Lambrecht is a veterinarian, practice owner, entrepreneur, and the founder and CEO of Healthy Pet Connect, a remote patient monitoring platform designed to connect home pet health data directly with the veterinary team. He has spent decades in small animal practice with a strong focus in preventative care, feline medicine, dentistry, nutrition, and weight management. He is also the owner and medical director of West Town Veterinary Center, a preventative care focused practice in Madison, Wisconsin. And he has served in leadership roles with several major veterinary organizations. Through his work with Fit Pets for Rescues and Healthy Pet Connect, Dr. Lambrecht has been exploring how technology, client engagement, and home monitoring can help veterinary teams better support pets between visits. Today, we're talking about a question that every veterinary team should be thinking about. What is happening between pet clinic visits that the veterinary team needs to know in order to provide the best preventative care? We're going to be discussing pet obesity, client engagement, home monitoring, feline health, technology, and how practices can use better data to improve outcomes. Ken, welcome to the Veterinary Business Podcast.
Thanks, Amanda. It's been quite a while. We've been talking about this. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background? What inspired you to take a deep look at weight management for companion animals? You and I have had these conversations many times, but it's so inspiring. I want you to share that with our listeners.
You know, it's kind of a crazy story, but just as a practicing veterinarian, I always went for the most common problems that were across the exam table. It started with dentistry. And so I became very involved I do advanced endodontics advanced dentistry, because 80% of our pets have it. And preventive care, 100% of our pets that we see need that. So I kind of went down the list, and obesity was right there at 60% or more. And so we dove in on that by creating a little challenge at our clinic. And back then it was called Fit Pets for Rescues. We had a couple different names, but over 14 years, we've now treated hundreds of pets and raised money for rescues. So it taught me, the way we did it was we would get prizes from vendors. And then in the early days, it was Babble Bark monitors, it was Sure Pet feeders, all these devices that were emerging, and the food companies that were making great products. So we would hold a little challenge, see if we could get, inject some fun into the process, because it's anything, probably the biggest challenge we face still with our own pets and our clients' pets. But really that little challenge started in 2012. It grew to what it is today. And so Healthy Pet Connect really is the platform that allows that challenge to be nationwide now. So I've learned so much, met so many great veterinarians that needed just a little help in that area. And that's what we're really all about.
Man, 2012, that's 14 years of obesity work. Knowing that the obesity epidemic it obviously started before 2012, but we've really been recognizing it here in the last decade or so. We know it's real. We all see it. Like you said, 60% of pets are coming in with weight concerns. Veterinary team members aren't able to fully address the problems on their own, right? Clients have to buy in. Clients have to engage. They're the ones that are feeding every day. So over the last 14 years, how have you engaged clients using your relationships, using your technology? What have you seen work?
I think, and a lot of it came from my work when I was on the Pet Nutrition Alliance Tools Committee. We developed a calculator that was I call it non-denominational. Okay, it was non-branded. And that really is where it starts. They need to know how many calories to feed. We need to estimate a BCS. We both know that that's a very subjective score, but it's the best we've got. We have to start with those knowns. Those clients need that. And once they have that, the biggest problem, especially for cats, is how are they going to know if they're winning or losing unless they have an accurate scale at home? And there really weren't that many good accurate scales except in the veterinary clinic until about 5, 6, 7 years ago. So that's really what we started with. We actually did a study with Dr. Bar Hadar. It was his PhD epidemiology study, one of his studies. And we showed that we needed a scale in the home. The technology in the home was necessary for success. And the preferred components were, we used a SurePet feeder and an Amazon baby scale. And those were what made the difference. But they also needed feedback. So we would have to collect data from the home. We did it by a diary. It was back and forth on email. It was very clunky. So that's when we built the app and the platform.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about the app and the platform. Obviously, you and I, we're techie nerds, and we love not only our data, but we love every means of communication with our clients. So tell me a little bit more about the app and the platform and how the communication goes both ways.
So basically, the app was born right after COVID, right after our study, when we realized that was part of the missing link was rapid data transfer and accurate data transfer. So basically, the pet parent enters what food they're feeding, the amount that they're feeding, and ideally a body weight. Now, it doesn't have to be a body weight from our scale. We have a Bluetooth scale. We love it. It's cat friendly, but it can be any reliable scale. It could be a litter robot. It can be Petivity scale. We just need that weight. And obviously, we don't want to drag the cat back and forth to the clinic more than needed. So these scales, these devices need to be at home. So I think that really is the key. We need the accurate devices at home. We needed a way to get the data in. And then what we created is a dashboard. So it shows average weekly weight loss. It shows what food they're feeding. We just added calculators to it. There's calculators in the app, and we're putting them now on the dashboard, but it's everything in one place. As you know, as a practicing veterinarian, the data is all over the place. It's in an email, it's in a text, or it's on a sticky note that the front desk took down.
Hey, don't knock my sticky notes. I live and breathe by my sticky notes.
I use them too. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, and one data point missed, that weekly weight, we don't know if that cat is losing too fast or too slow. So that's really where it comes down to an efficient system that works both in the busy veterinary clinic and for the client at home. And I'm not saying we have 100% compliance, nowhere near, but there are certain clients, them, they're going to put everything down. You've seen the spreadsheets. I want that spreadsheet in my format. Right? Not theirs. And then, so I've refined that. I use it in my clinic every day. It's been a great way to tweak it, to know what I think is valuable to most veterinarians, but it's very, very malleable according to the style, practice style, and that sort of thing.
Okay. I want to come back to that because obviously the ability to communicate between veterinarians and clients is something that we are facing on a daily basis. It's the running joke, don't come into veterinary medicine if you only like animals, because you wind up dealing with the people on the other end of the leash all the time. But I do want to take a quick break here and talk about how marketing in general, but certainly marketing a product like yours, allows veterinarians to really stand out. And I appreciate that so much from this conversation, because success doesn't happen during the appointment alone. We're talking about weight management and preventative care and chronic disease monitoring. Those outcomes depend on what happens when the client leaves the practice. And that creates an interesting business challenge for veterinary hospitals. Many practices invest heavily in the medical care, the technology, the staff training, but they struggle with client compliance, with missed follow-ups, and keeping pet owners engaged between visits. The reality is that even the best recommendations can fall short if clients aren't consistently connected to the veterinary practice. And that's where marketing and communication become part of that patient care. The practices seeing the strongest growth today aren't necessarily the ones sending the most promotions or discounts. They're the ones building ongoing relationships through education, reminders, follow-up communication, and digital engagement that keeps their hospital top of mind throughout the year. So here's a question for our listeners, for practice owners and managers. How effectively is your practice communicating with your clients between visits? If you're looking for ways to improve client engagement, strengthen compliance, increase retention, and create a better overall client experience, that's exactly the kind of conversation our platinum sponsor, Equa Marketing, has with the veterinary practices that they work with every day. To learn more about building a stronger connection with your clients and growing your practice, schedule a complimentary marketing strategy meeting using www.veterinarybusinessinstitute.com/MSM. Again, that's www.veterinarybusinessinstitute.com/MSM. Now, back to our conversation, Dr. Ken. I want to talk a little bit about home monitoring, because, that's where I live and breathe and spend so much of my time right now. Obviously, sensors like Voice, which is the startup I work with, are one piece of the puzzle, but Healthy Pet Connect really is another piece. You've started sort of describing the platform and the scale and the app. Where do we engage with these things? How do I, as a veterinarian, start to step into that and figure out how I can incorporate that into my practice?
It's a great question. And, we started with weight management, but now we really look to CKD cats, hyperthyroid cats. It's not just the cats that need to lose weight. It's, as you say, what's happening at home in between the visits that really is the vital part. What I see is so many people now getting devices, whether it's Amagi, Tractive, any of I call them everyday wearables. Unlike Voice, they're very basic, but they're giving us data. Is that data, as a veterinarian, can I trust that data? If they say the sleep score is such and such, what does that really mean to me? So I really we come at this at is this valid data? Can we organize it well? First of all, what data do we need? Is it valid? How do we organize it? And trends. I'm a graph nut. I mean, I want to see, are we winning or losing? And it really, I think, in our busy practices, it has to be a 60 or 90 second glimpse. I can't be reading a paragraph. I mean, the other thing that has really been interesting to me is what AI is doing. I mean, my clients are coming in, they've already been to Claude or Chat or whoever.
Yeah.
We need to be prepared for that. So we are looking at building AI into our dashboard as we speak. But it's got to be, as you know, AI is only as good as its data source. So we've got to have a really good data source. What I'm excited about is what we're building there with our own data and our partners' data, and sharing that data, not having a silo over here that is, like some big wearables that we know about, and nobody can access that data. That's not useful. And if you have to buy a subscription, there always has to be a pay to play. But most of this data should be readily available. It's the pet owner's data. They own it. And we're just using it for the betterment of the pets. So sorry to go off on a soapbox, but it really is a big deal right now. Things are moving so fast.
It really is. So I'm going to go down the nerdy path for just a second. Can you talk about the integration piece? When you're talking about this dashboard, how does that play with the PIM system that the hospitals are already using?
Yeah, that part is being written as we speak. But what I see, Amanda, is all these scribes coming in and they're bringing in other parts of data. I don't think we can wait for the PIMS. Enough has been written by John Ayers and Adam and all the brilliant minds there. And we know that the PIMS were great for a time, but that data has to be much more transferable. And so we're actively talking with several scribes where we could integrate with them. It really is just a data sharing question, right? And AI is going to solve that. And I really think that the people that have that focus on how can we prevent problems, how can we get, keep the clients active, because as you know, they're straying. We have to stay ahead of them, not follow them. Mm-hmm. So be ahead of them in terms of getting all that home data together, meshing it. Look what Pointer's doing. Going in and getting all that data to show a trend or a prognostication. We need to fit right into that before the pet client discovers it outside. That's my feeling.
Okay.
How do we do it? I don't have a simple answer, but if we didn't have AI, it would be happening so much more slowly.
Right.
I think with the right AI, the open source AI, and just, working together to solve this problem without having all these turf battles, that's really what I'm excited about.
Yeah, me too. So in the short term, prior to our AI solutions and our scribe solutions, is this data able to be accessed and, say, for instance, downloaded in a PDF form for then uploading into an existing PIM system? How do you do that data transfer so it stays in the existing medical record?
Yeah, right now we don't have any direct integrations, just to be clear. Everything is on our dashboard.
Okay.
And what we hope is that we can define what data we need from a provider. Sylvester AI, we're working on providing a way that we can display that mood data, the wonderful work that they're doing on our dashboard. We have our own mood score, but it only alerts that there might be an issue. And there's just so much more validation that they're working on. So that's a perfect example. Other companies, just what data is useful to the veterinarian. If it's already being done, how do we put that next to the nutritional data that we're collecting? A different scale, it doesn't matter. We still need to see what that average weekly weight loss is to be able to tell that client, are we winning or losing?
Yeah, that's a great point. I know and love that you work with so many different players. And I also know how much focus you currently have and have always had on feline medicine. Personally, I think that's because you have Bug, the best cat who has ever existed. So how are you able to balance your home life with Bug as well as your practice life and your startup life? There's a lot of hats that you're wearing right now.
Amanda, this question was not on the list.
Of course it wasn't on the list. This is Amanda being nosy with her friend.
No, it's a great question. Well, Bug just celebrated her 15th birthday.
Wow.
We happened to be at Hills on a facility tour. They took great care of her. And so that's her life. She goes to almost all the conferences. She sails with me. She's been on a paddleboard. She taught me. She's one of the most food motivated cats I've ever had. She recently developed hyperthyroidism. That's another story. I have 5 cats total. But basically, when Bug came, I really realized just how special. I mean, I've always had cats my whole life. Always had an orange cat, by the way. I have 3 now. But but when that one comes with that look, and everything is dependent. But she's an adventure cat. So she's indoors, outdoors. So she's worn about every activity monitor you can name. She's used about every feeder you can name. And so it's my life is interwoven with cats, nutrition, technology. I love to travel. It all works together. I wouldn't happen with my Labrador that I had years ago. He wouldn't travel as well. But as you know, Bug, I don't leave Bug at home. And so it's led me to understand the challenges, some of the, being a cat owner, those challenges of, how do you measure their food when they, give you that look, right?
Yeah. So being food motivated with Bug, we're gonna pick on Bug and use Bug as an example. Being so food motivated, what can veterinarians tell their clients or work with their clients on when they say, but she's giving me that look, or I feel mean because I'm not feeding her when she asks to be fed. And in a multi-cat household, that can be a really big deal. Ken, I know you work with a lot of experts in the field. And of course, you and Dr. Bar Haydar have also done clinical studies. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about what you're hearing, as well as some of the study work that you guys have done to show the effectiveness of Healthy Pet Connect?
The study I think that you're referring to is the 2021 study that Bar's PhD epidemiology study. That study showed that by using technology in the home, we could be 4 times more effective in weight management. And it also showed that the cats would eat smaller, more frequent feedings. And the technology we used was an Amazon scale. It was a Sure Pet feeder. It was a FitBark monitor. And it was a Pet Cube video cam. So it was really cool because we focused the camera on the feeding station so we could see if there was any cat around, any sharing that shouldn't have occurred. We had the activity monitor didn't give us a whole lot of information, but it was useful to see if it was actually, going to pick up. You never know what's going to pick up the data that you're looking for, but you know how erratic cat movements are. But the scale and the feeder were the preferred from the client's perspective and the veterinarian's perspective were the most valuable components to allow effective weight management.
So it sounds like, and we all know, giving cats a exercise plan is the world's biggest joke. It sounds like smaller, frequent feedings, according to the research that you have done, as well as some of the research that's out in the veterinary nutrition world, that it sounds to me like smaller, frequent feedings are the key to success. Am I getting that right?
Well, I mean, that's one school of thought. Adroni Vibrogi did a great study, and our study was done with, it was a North American study. So it was OVC was where Bar was, and Adroni was a nutritionist on our study. But basically, she's done another study where you can feed cats once a day and get good results. So the jury is not out. I think most people would say, based on the way cats foraged in the wild, it was 6 to 8 times a day. There was a lot of activity between, for that hunting, for that prey. So I think that is how do we recreate that in our home? That's pretty hard, right? Because that means we need a cat restricted feeder. We need to make sure that we have a feeder for every cat. That gets expensive. So it really, again, I think we said earlier, it's every cat household is different. So it becomes kind of a custom solution. But in general, the accuracy of that feeder, the fact that it doesn't let just the big cat, usually there's one big cat, right, that's going to eat everybody else's food. So you have to look at that household and say, okay, how can we set up the feeder so that that cat gets only the amount of food we want and the correct food? So that really, and that could be, again, like we talked, could be a CKD cat that can only eat, and so some of these new feeders have intruder mode. They can leave the feeder open all the time, except when the big cat approaches, it closes. So that's a pretty cool feature that we're seeing more and more with these feeders.
Okay, so an intruder mode, that sounds like something that my 2 teenage girls would really like to explore in our household. So with the studies, you have told me previously that the key to success may not be the number of feedings or the volume of feedings, but what about the weight and the scaling of the feedings? You have mentioned weighing food on a gram scale or a food scale previously. So I want to give our listeners an opportunity to kind of hear from you on, is there science to back that up? And also, how you would have that conversation with a veterinary client.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down. We have a 5-step handout that wherever you get the calories, whether you use the pet nutrition, first of all, we need to know the BCS. Once we have that, the PNA calculator, all the non-branded calculators use ideal weight as the number of calories they need. Once we have, and there's the tough conversation, we need to figure out between us and the client, what food are they willing to feed? If they're all over, if it's a 9 out of 9 cat and they say, I see diabetes coming, whatever, Dr. Ken, I will go with that RX food. I believe you. It's easy. And we've got that food, if they don't know at that visit, what we tend to do is send them home. Okay, here's the calories I want you to feed. I strongly recommend RX food. If they're over 8 out of 9, feed those calories, and we're going to need a reweigh in a week or 2. Okay. So that to me does not mean come back to the clinic. That means either in our clinic, consider buying one of our scales, or get one on Amazon that is cat friendly, not going to break in a week or 2, and that can be a challenge, right? Not an option is to go home and weigh yourself on your body weight scale and weigh the cat. It's really not accurate to 10 grams the way the current small pet feed weight scales are. So basically, again, that reassessment has to happen. They go home with the amount of calories that are calculated that they need. And it's usually, I would say 90% of the time from the PNA calculator is exactly, it works. But that's hard for people to do because sometimes, and the gold standard is to how many calories are they eating and take away 10%, but people don't normally know. They don't count the calories. So it's a stepwise, get them to realize the problem, know how many calories to feed, know what food to feed, but then that reassessment is really where I think a Healthy Pet Connect has stepped in, is if they will use the app, they will record those things. There can be a back and forth between the clinic and the client. Okay.
For point of clarification, the PNA calculator you're mentioning, can you tell us where that can be found?
PetNutritionAlliance.org. And it's a wonderful calculator. You can put in any food you want. Of course, these days, with AI, I think we're going to see, we have put a version of that on our dashboard. It uses 0.8 RER of the ideal weight. It's not rocket science. That works for most cats. Dogs is 1.0 RER. And again, there's lots of calculators to use, but again, a starting point. I think we all get hung up on the calculations. whatever the starting point is, in a week or two, if they're not losing weight, we're going to recommend they lose 10%. But again, is that a text, a phone call, or an email? We would hope that they could just check on the dashboard. We send alerts, reduce by 10%, and then the client automatically does that. And then there can be other alerts, not we need a current weight. But all that discussion, all the decisions on food are made by the veterinarian. So that way, but we provide the resources of, which food, how much calories in each food. Those are all resources we want to bring all together on one page, one dashboard.
Okay. So when I, as a practicing veterinarian, am facing a patient with obesity and a client who gets it but isn't really sure where to start, it sounds like where I, as the veterinarian, need to start is the existing weight, the current name and volume of food, if known, so that I can calculate that, the BCS for the pet, so that I can then come back in and use something like the Pet Nutrition Alliance calculator to get a better idea of what I'm looking at. But my goal is about 10% to move forward and help that pet lose that weight at a safe rate. But to do that, the client's going to need to weigh that pet at home once a week. Am I getting the highlights?
Yeah, once a week. We prefer every other day for a BCS of 9 and up. Some of the cats, some of the really high risk, whether we get that compliance or not. But once the clients figure out an easy way to get the cat on the scale, put the churro at the end, or make a game out of it. It's not that hard once they get. And again, Litter Robot and Petivity, they're getting those passive weights, every day. So no matter where the source of the weights, getting them on a trend line and knowing what the average weekly weight loss. And that may not be a common figure for all veterinarians, but basically cats can lose very, very safely at 0.5 to 1%. If they're eating a prescription food, we can go higher than that. They have no other underlying conditions. But again, that's all under the veterinarian's control. But Spudgy, 37-pound cat, we had him losing at 2 to 3% on a very high protein RX food. We use Purina OM on him, and we've done dozens of cats over 20 pounds that way safely. But again, you have to get those frequent weights and coach that client. Once they start, and they get to watch the trend line too, they get to watch the progress. And again, just that connection to the vet where somebody's supervising them and we're helping monitor is really what we've seen successful.
Okay. So Spudgy's a great example. And you mentioned having success with cats over 20 pounds. And obviously we're all, as veterinary team members, hyper aware of what can happen when cats lose too fast. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear. They can lose 1 to 2% of their body weight weekly in a safe way. Am I understanding that correct?
Classic, the gold standard is 0.5 to 1%. And up to 2% if there are no underlying conditions and an RX purpose-fed food like OM or metabolic or Royal Canin. All of those, most of the experienced boarded nutritionists will go up to 2%. So they don't all agree on the number, but again, it's case by case. And I've seen, but in hundreds and hundreds of cats, I haven't seen people go too fast very often. And usually it's a scale error, or our algorithm averages over 10 days. So we don't make quick adjustments. We make them very slow and steady. But once you see that trend line and we get to that number of calories, what's really interesting, Amanda, is after they reach ideal weight, their calories skyrocket. We presented at AAVN. We had 5 cats that were all over 20 pounds. And 3 out of those 5 cats were directly under my control. They were fed 100 calories a day. 100, when the standard out there is 200, 240. When I use the Pet Nutrition Alliance calculator, most of these cats go home on about 150 to 180 calories. That's about 0.8. And realize that most female cats should weigh between 7 and 9. There's some outliers there. Most male cats 10 to 14 covers it. So when you get a cat like Spudgy, you can't use a 9 out of 9 scale. He's a 9 plus, right? So you have to go back to, okay, he's a male cat. He should weigh between 10 and 14 pounds. I'll use 12. That's a guess. But that's the calories he needs to get to his ideal weight. And sure enough, that he got there. But we had to go even lower than that to get him to. And those are these big cats. They go hypometabolic. But been really cool is to see the graphs when they reach ideal weight, they go back to 200 calories a day. Their caloric intake doubles.
Okay, for our listeners, I'm very familiar with Spudgy, but for our listeners who may not be familiar with Spudgy or the research that has been done around him, can you give us a quick overview of Spudgy, where he started, where he wound up, just to allow our listeners to kind of get an impression of the clinical success you've had? Yeah,
so Spudgy came from the Dane County Humane Society. We've worked with all of our local rescues. There's 3 of them, really, really active. And Spudgy came to us like, hey, Dr. Ken, we need help on this one. So Spudgy came, believe it or not, 37 pounds. Amanda, he couldn't even walk. He was just, there's pictures on our website and a video if anybody's curious, but it was scariest cat I've ever treated. But we do have a cat gymnasium. So he lived in the gym. He could barely walk. So I immediately called Julie Churchill, good friend, emails to several boarded nutritionists, including Alex German and Liverpool, world's expert in obesity. And they walked me through it. And then along the way, they said, Ken, this cat could die at any moment. And so, okay, well, here we go. He was living in Bug's gym. What was really curious is he came to the clinic the week our first app launched. So he was a perfect test case to see how the app, he broke the graphs immediately, all of them. And but basically we started nurturing him back. I wished I would have had an underwater treadmill that I had at my previous clinic. I didn't have that. We just basically, it was feed him, exercise him as best we could. And he came. And so the facts are he got to ideal weight of 12 pounds in 18 months. So that was faster than some people. It was basically, he was a published paper in the Veterinary Feline Practitioner, October, I think 2 years ago. But basically, I was fighting diabetes or death, either way. So I fed him, again, roughly, he was fed about 100 calories, Purina OM for 18 months. He's still on OM. He still has a high food drive. He comes running. He drags churu, the wrappers out of the trash from the exam rooms. He's a very food motivated cat. But so that's back to that look in the eyes. I just go, Spudgy, I can't do it. You can't go back to where you were, right? When he asks for more food. But the feeder, we use an automatic feeder. And when that thing clicks, he comes running across the clinic, right? He lives down below now. He comes running. So, and does that affect my, he's mine now. I adopted him, but he lives at the clinic. Does that interfere with my relationship with him? No. When I, snacking at the desk, he's coming running, right? But I give him pets and rubs and all that instead of food. So I think we just substitute the way we love them. If you're talking about the challenge of those eyes and when they're hungry.
That makes sense. Of course, our clients never like to hear, brush or snuggle because they want the job of giving a food reward because humans are so frequently food rewarded, right? You tell me I get an ice cream if I do something, I'm going to do whatever you want. So do you ever face challenges when you're having these conversations with clients that are really sad that they can't use food treats as a demonstration of love? How do you get those clients really engaged with that, without the threats of diabetes, liver disease? Have you found a particular way to have that conversation with the clients so that they are able to really engage with their role in the weight loss process?
Yeah, I think that you've hit on what is the most challenging part. I mean, how much time do we have, right, in our typical exam? But
right.
I try and be the pet's advocate, and I, you don't have to say it, but I just say, listen, we really need to get this done. And sometimes I have years of trust built up with them. Sometimes they're a brand new client. But candidly, it's kind of the same. I'm concerned about your pet. I'm concerned that this weight. I'm concerned they're going to get diabetes. I'm concerned that their osteoarthritis is going to be worse. And if they come to us because they want the best preventative approach, I can't not have that conversation. So, but the conversation is different with everybody, a little bit different, but the tools are the same. And I've offered them tools. I've got, if they are adverse, they don't have money for a feeder, we're going to find another way to do it. I'm going to emphasize never leave food in the bowl,
Yeah.
do fixed feedings. There's just some basics that are not hard. They just need to kind of have that discussion. It's a dialogue. It's definitely a dialogue.
Okay. For our clients that may have constraints not allowing them to feed a prescription diet, have you found any success talking through different ways that you can do some of the aspects of what Healthy Pet Connect offers, but maybe in a modified way? Like you said, never leaving food behind. Do you have any other helpful tips for your clients?
Well, for dogs, it definitely exercise, climate, and all that. Being agreeable is, exercise for dogs is certainly a good thing to emphasize. But I think measuring it, just really measure the food, treats. We can't talk about weight management without talking about only 10% of. So we have to have a treat count. Calorie count. Again, the app can steer them through that, but they can do it on their own. We have a sheet of paper. If we have a client that doesn't want to use an app, doesn't want to load an app, we put it all down on paper. I'm not above using paper. So basically, I think it's just that a plan. Here's the plan. If the plan doesn't work, we will revise the plan, but let's both agree this is important for your pet. And
Okay.
that's the simplicity, keep it simple, stupid kind of thing. The simplicity, I think we sometimes get all worried about emotionally. How's the client going to react? How's what food? If we keep it to calories, activity, measurement, reassessment, if you look at any boarded nutritionists, they're always going to talk about reassessment. We can't just make a recommendation, give them some calories and say, we'll see you in 6 months. It just doesn't work. Yeah. We have to have that in between the visits data. And that, again, is where Healthy Pet Connect or anything like it is going to be useful. Look at how many apps there are for people. But do those apps communicate with the physician? Not any that I know about, but that's what I think is happening with, wearables. There's so much information coming from human wearables and there's no filter. And these people are freaking out. Like, am I in an arrhythmia? That's kind of your area. But I mean, don't you see that? I think we need some structure. We need an interface, or we need something that listens to the pet owner, has that data, and then there's some way that the veterinarian can either reach out or not, some sort of an alert system.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, those are definitely, topics that are worth exploring, obviously, both, well, really from a One Health perspective, right? Like how do we assess and reassess in the data that we have? How do we make it usable? How do we make it viable? So definitely part of a larger ongoing conversation. You had mentioned the website and versus doing it on paper, both of which I'm a huge fan of. As an old school veterinarian myself, I live and breathe through Post-its and paper and technology. So I span the whole gamut. How can any of our listeners find out more information about Healthy Pet Connect or the app, any preferred scales? Tell us a little bit about how we can take this conversation to the next level.
Yeah, I think we've built the website to be very user-friendly for both pet parents and for veterinarians. So basically on the front page, there'll be a video of Spudgy if you want to see kind of one of our toughest cases. There's QR codes that'll take you straight to the app, which is free. The only time there's a charge for the app is when it connects to the veterinarian. We have there's details on Fit Pets Rescues, our previous challenges, who's won it. We had, I think, $20,000 in prizes, Petivity scales. I'm going to forget a bunch of people here. Purina was an incredible donor. We have tools that veterinarians can use. But there's products on our website that we feel that should be used, that we've had good success with. Paws Pick Feeders is an amazing. It's got the intruder mode on it. But again, Sure Pet Feeders work too. It's just really somebody looking at their household, learning a little bit about it. There's a blog that talks about some of my challenges with Spudgy and the other cats. And basically, it's every spring and fall we run a challenge where again it's free to join for 8 weeks, six weeks. We were at 8 weeks. We did 4 weeks, but 6 weeks I think is going to be our ongoing challenge. And pet veterinarians can get their whole team. You can get the team members to put their pets in the challenge. And the bottom line, they're not going to lose the amount of weight they need to in 6 weeks, but they're going to get started on a plan to do that. But we've had some amazing successes for people that just kind of will follow that. And again, the prizes are very strong incentives. We've had really good luck getting people that, on board that might not have joined.
Absolutely. The gamification aspect is really intriguing because, of course, that works so well on the human side, too.
Yeah, we're definitely working on that now. You need the devices, you need the science, but you need to make something. There's got to be that motivation to get people to jump in. And again, this last challenge, we had 9 rescues that we were able to give over $1,000 to, 10 actually. And we had vet students involved from Colorado State University. We're planning on adding UGA and a couple other vet schools this fall. So it's an educational process for everybody. And it has been for me. So sharing those basics and again, then taking the basics and then tweaking them and making them fit that household is kind of the fun part that never gets old, really.
And where can people find this? What's your website?
It's www.healthypetconnect.com.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Ken Lambrecht, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insight with our listeners. I really appreciate your time. In this episode, we did talk about what veterinary teams need to know between clinic visits in order to help adjust for weight as well as other forms of preventative care. We explored the growing challenge of pet obesity, the importance of client engagement, how those relationships and how technology can also work together, and how home monitoring can help veterinary teams stay more connected to patients and pet owners. We also discussed Healthy Pet Connect, what makes the platform and the app different, and how better access to home health data can support weight management, chronic disease monitoring, and more proactive veterinary care. Before we close, we also want to remind our listeners that you can schedule a complimentary marketing strategy meeting with Equa Marketing using www.veterinarybusinessinstitute.com/MSM. This is a free resource we offer to listeners to help veterinary practices explore ways to improve their online presence, attract the right clients, and grow more strategically. New episodes of the Veterinary Business Podcast are released every Thursday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. So make sure to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, this is Dr. Amanda Landis-Hanna signing off.